Madagascar, a mysterious, pristine island in eastern Africa, contains thrilling stories about love, marriage, and sex. Here, local women overturn traditional norms and turn sex into a weapon to demonstrate strength, independence, and assert the right to choose a husband. Teenage girls have to leave their families and live alone in small huts, where they learn how to become future wives. Meanwhile, men easily cheat without suffering many consequences, creating an unimaginable gender polarization. Furthermore, relationships with tourists, for some women, are considered a sign of strength, a way to affirm their position in a society that is changing day by day. So Madagascar, the fourth largest island in the world, is not only famous for its pristine natural beauty, but also for its rich and diverse culture. In recent years, a social phenomenon has captured global attention: the relationships between local women and tourists, which are seen here as a sign of strength and independence. Let's delve deeper into this issue to gain a better understanding of the cultural and social aspects, as well as the opportunities and challenges it presents. Sexual freedom is an important part of Madagascar's culture, where women are often encouraged to express themselves more freely. In some communities, sexual relationships with tourists are viewed as a way for women to demonstrate their attractiveness and power. The phenomenon of Malagasy women engaging in relationships with tourists also exemplifies a shift in gender perceptions. While traditional values once confined women to roles of submission and family honor, young women today are using sex as a tool to reclaim control over the kraka. This not only challenges traditional normalization processes, but also opens up a dialogue about women's freedom of choice. These sexual relationships with foreign tourists allow Malagasy women to explore new experiences and actively decide on their relationships, breaking free from societal prejudices and traditional cultural constraints. According to numerous studies and interviews, many women take pride in establishing sexual relationships with tourists. They seek not only sexual satisfaction, but also an opportunity for self-exploration and affirmation of their place in society. In the social context they inhabit, the ability to choose their partners and experience relationships is of utmost importance. This may lead many girls to engage in short-term sexual relationships with tourists, an act they perceive as empowering and dignifying. Additionally, a significant aspect is that these relationships with tourists can provide them with a considerable income to support themselves, especially in a challenging economic environment in Madagascar. Many investigations indicate that in certain villages, unmarried girls and women from specific ethnic groups are expected to have intimate relationships not only with men from their village, but also with unfamiliar tourists. This action not only helps them assert their identities, but also brings a sense of freedom in exploring their sexual needs and desires. However, it is noteworthy that in some communities, societal expectations can create pressure on women. They are expected to engage intimately, not only with local men, but also with strangers, and refusal in such situations can lead to embarrassment. This creates an internal conflict, as women wish to assert their personal strength while simultaneously facing societal pressure. Many young women, although feeling free to choose their partners, sometimes face the risks of being abandoned or exploited. Some teenage girls may not be prepared for the potential consequences of engaging with tourists. These factors make establishing relationships with tourists a double-edged sword, offering opportunities while posing serious challenges. Not only women, but also local men engage in similar relationships with female tourists. They often view these encounters as opportunities to experience a new way of life and connect with people from different cultures. For them, receiving attention from tourists is not just an exciting experience, but also a means of self-expression and a way to enhance their social status. In some cases, these relationships can provide financial benefits, as some men leverage the attention from tourists to create additional sources of income. These relationships often occur openly without facing heavy criticism. Conversely, successful relationships with foreigners are still seen as personal victories, especially in areas where traditional cultural norms regarding masculinity remain strong. These men may receive admiration from friends and family, striving to enhance their reputation within their communities. However, this also presents various challenges and risks for both parties, as relationships are not always maintained in a healthy and sustainable manner. Establishing relationships with tourists provides local women with numerous opportunities, from boosting self-confidence to enhancing financial possibilities. However, it also comes with challenges. Many girls, despite finding freedom and empowerment in these relationships, face the risk of rejection or exploitation. Additionally, Some younger women may find themselves in awkward situations when they are unprepared for the potential consequences of engaging with tourists. This can lead to health issues. The rise of sex tourism increases the risk of sexually transmitted infections and makes women vulnerable if they are not equipped with adequate knowledge about health protection. Furthermore, they need to be cautious about the social barriers they may face if a relationship does not succeed. Not everyone agrees with these customs. Some argue the local women engaging with tourists can lead to societal polarization and create negative impacts on family and community relationships. Meanwhile, others see it as a way for women to assert themselves and break free from traditional constraints. To better understand this issue, a comprehensive and in-depth perspective on the cultural and social context in Madagascar is needed. The diversity of viewpoints and experiences of individuals will enrich this discussion. The relationship between local women and tourists in Madagascar is not merely about physical encounters. It is also part of a journey toward seeking strength, freedom, and independence. In a rapidly changing world, these customs may signal that society is progressing and becoming more open than ever. Let us explore and gain a deeper understanding of these complex aspects, as each relationship holds its own stories, emotions, and memorable moments. Madagascar, a land of wild nature that not only amazes the world with the diversity of its exotic flora and fauna, but also with its astonishingly liberal customs and practices related to sexuality and marriage. Here, women are not merely passive participants in their romantic lives. They fully exercise their right to choose their husbands through sexual relationships. Let us explore this shocking and alluring custom, a place where women are free to engage in premarital relations without the constraints of societal prejudices. In some tribes in Madagascar, particularly the Antandrian Mahapali, women enjoy a rare privilege. They can experience sexual relationships with multiple men in search of their ideal husbands. Informal relationships, known as tromba, allow women to assert their power and independence in choosing a partner. Unlike many Eastern or Western cultures that place a high value on virginity, women here are free to explore their feelings and sexuality wisely without fear of judgment. This makes Madagascar a unique land where romantic freedom is celebrated within marriage customs. This practice allows women to engage in sexual relationships not only for the pleasure they derive from their male partners, but also to explore themselves and assess compatibility with their partners before deciding to enter marriage. In this community, having multiple romantic or sexual relationships before marriage is considered normal and earns the respect of those around them. Families and society do not view it as taboo. Rather, they support women in their quest to find happiness. While many cultures regard virginity as a symbol to assess a woman's virtue, Madagascar has a different perspective. Here, virginity is not a measure of character or a prerequisite for judging a girl. Women do not feel pressured to maintain their virginity before marriage. On the contrary, they are encouraged to experience life to better understand themselves and others. This helps to minimize issues related to unreasonable expectations and psychological pressure for women, while also providing them with the space to freely explore their emotions and personal preferences. Society does not view women having multiple romantic relationships as shameful. Instead, it sees this as a rightful and essential part of their pursuit of happiness. This custom is not just a manifestation of sexual freedom, but also emphasizes personal responsibility within relationships. Women are not merely seeking fleeting experiences. They actively assess the long-term suitability of their partners for marriage. The combination of freedom and responsibility has created a culture where relationships are more sustainable and less pressured by societal expectations. In Madagascar, women do not have to wait to be chosen. They decide who their partners will be. And men must also demonstrate sincerity and compatibility to be chosen by women, fostering a relationship that is more equal and respectful. Thanks to this custom, divorce rates among tribes such as the Antandrian Mahapali are believed to be very low. Marriages here are often based on genuine love and compatibility, rather than coercion or calculation. Both women and men have the opportunity to understand each other before taking the significant step into marriage, which helps minimize unnecessary instability. This also helps eliminate stereotypes about women's roles in the family and society. Women are not just caregivers, but also autonomous individuals with the right to choose and determine their own destinies. While the practice of sexual freedom in Madagascar offers many positive aspects, such as promoting women's autonomy and creating sustainable relationships, it also carries certain risks regarding health, psychology, and society if sexual freedom is not exercised responsibly and with full understanding. Without proper control and education, The casual nature of sexual relationships can lead to complex and difficult consequences. One of the greatest risks of this natural education system is the spread of sexually transmitted infections, such as HIV/AIDS, syphilis, gonorrhea, and HPV. When women and men have multiple partners, managing sexual health becomes more challenging. In some communities in Madagascar, people have some awareness of sexual health and the use of protective measures like condoms. But this knowledge is still quite limited, increasing the risk of transmission and infection. In addition, a direct consequence of sexual freedom is unintended pregnancy. When women have multiple partners without using safe contraceptive measures, they are more likely to encounter unexpected issues. In many cases, unintended pregnancies can force women to face difficult decisions, such as abortion or raising a child alone without sufficient support from their partners. In tribes where marriage is not always the goal of relationships, the responsibility of raising a child can become a burden for women, especially if the father is unwilling to take responsibility. Furthermore, this can lead to an increase in the number of children who are not properly cared for, impacting the quality of life for future generations. The practice of sexual freedom in Madagascar surprises many parts of the world and even sparks controversy. While some cultures argue that such sexual freedom may undermine value systems, others view it as a sign of progress and respect for women's individual rights. From a sociological perspective, this custom represents a step forward in eliminating gender inequality and creating a society where individuals can live authentically according to their emotions. It also opens up a new perspective on marriage where love is not only an emotion, but also a choice made with a sense of responsibility. The custom that allows women to experience emotions and sexuality before marriage in Madagascar is not just a strange story. It is also a profound lesson about love and personal freedom. In the modern world, where social pressures and prejudices still exist, the story of women in Madagascar shows that true love can be built on the foundation of freedom and mutual understanding. With these unique customs, Madagascar demonstrates that the right to experience sexuality and choose a partner is an inherent right for everyone, and that true love is never limited by suffering or social prejudices. In the remote villages of Madagascar, an ancient custom still exists and profoundly affects the lives of young girls. When a girl reaches puberty, according to traditional customs, she must leave her family home and move to live alone in a small hut nearby. These huts are not only a new living space, but also mark an important transition in the girls' lives from childhood to adulthood. This custom, seemingly a way to prepare for the future, carries many challenges and potential risks. These small and lonely huts become places where the girls must confront complex relationships, under the close watch of the men living around them. What really happens behind this cultural custom? And why does Madagascar rank among the countries with the highest teenage pregnancy rates in the world? This practice originates from ethnic communities in Madagascar centuries ago, when society focused on preparing girls to become wives and mothers in the future. In the traditional context, women play the role of homemakers, caring for their husbands and children and maintaining stability. However, to do this, girls must be trained from an early age. When girls enter puberty, typically between the ages of 12 and 14, an important milestone in their lives, they must leave their parents' home to live in small huts, referred to as adult huts. This is not just a private space. It is where they learn to be independent, developing essential skills for marriage, such as cooking, cleaning, and caring for others. Parents believe that separating their daughters helps them mature faster and prepare for family life later on. However, over time, the meaning of this custom has been distorted. Initially, the huts were only temporary living spaces during preparations for weddings or significant rituals. But now, many girls are forced to live alone for extended periods without proper supervision from their families. In theory, this custom is carried out by families to prepare girls for marriage. When a girl leaves her family and moves into her own hut, she is taught about responsibilities, her roles within the family and society, and mentally prepared for married life. The hut is seen as a private space where the girl learns to be self-sufficient, manage household tasks, and begin interacting more with boys in the community. Parents believe that separating their daughters will give them the opportunity to experience maturity and be ready for the role of a wife. However, this goal does not always align with reality, especially when cultural traditions clash with modern social factors and changing lifestyles. When a girl reaches puberty, usually between the ages of 12 and 14. The family will hold a small ceremony to mark the event. Afterward, she is required to pack her belongings and move into a small hut, typically built near her parents' home. This hut is usually very simple, just enough space for sleeping and a few necessary items. Life in the adult hut is challenging. Young girls not only have to take care of themselves but also face pressure from the boys in the village. Their living spaces are often poorly protected, and the presence of boys nearby, especially at night, leads to situations that can become difficult to manage. One of the most concerning aspects of this custom is the uncontrolled freedom that young boys can exploit to approach girls in their adult huts. Living alone, without anyone closely supervising or protecting them, the girls are easily drawn into romantic relationships with boys from the village or even with tourists visiting the area. And many young men living around this region often approach and connect with these girls. In cultural tradition, this interaction is viewed as normal, but without supervision, it can easily lead to relationships that cross boundaries. This closeness can lead to casual encounters. With their immature mindset and lack of knowledge about safe sex, many girls find themselves in situations of unintended pregnancy before marriage. This not only creates psychological pressure, but also significantly impacts their future, as society is not adequately prepared to support young mothers. The issue of unintended teenage pregnancies has become one of the most serious consequences of this custom. According to United Nations statistics, Madagascar currently ranks among the countries with the highest teenage pregnancy rates in the world. Young girls, lacking support in sexual education and reproductive health, easily fall into these circumstances after casual encounters in or near their huts. Teenage pregnancy forces these girls to face social stigma, while also putting them in economically difficult situations and responsible for child rearing. In many cases, the men who approach them do not take responsibility or abandon them upon learning that the girl is pregnant. As a result, many young women must raise their children alone without any mental or financial preparation. The repercussions of teenage pregnancy have created a social crisis in Madagascar. The long-term consequences have made Madagascar one of the countries with the highest teenage pregnancy rates, according to the United Nations, and one of the countries with the highest rates of child marriage, with 41% of girls married before the age of 18. For a country already facing economic difficulties, the early pregnancies of a significant portion of its youth have placed enormous pressure on the healthcare and social welfare systems. Many young girls are forced to drop out of school, giving up their dreams of education and career development to care for their small families. For the community, this also presents a challenge to raise awareness about sexual education and reproductive health, especially in rural areas. This situation has turned Madagascar into a hotspot for teenage pregnancy, with the birth rates among girls under 18 steadily increasing. In recent years, there have been efforts from non-governmental organizations and international agencies to raise awareness about this issue. Sexual education programs have been implemented in some rural areas to help young girls better understand safe sex and personal responsibility in relationships. However, changing deeply entrenched customs is a process that requires time and support from the entire community. The custom of young girls in Madagascar living in separate huts when they reach puberty, while originally intended for good purposes, has now become a potential risk. Although it is considered an integral part of the journey to adulthood, the consequences it brings, especially regarding teenage pregnancy, cannot be overlooked. Amid the challenges of the 21st century, Madagascar must reassess these customs to ensure that young girls are protected, educated, and provided with better opportunities for development in life. On the tropical island of Madagascar, hidden behind its pristine beauty and rich culture, is a little-known truth. Men's infidelity is often easier and more socially accepted than that of women. Many would be surprised to learn that in some communities in Madagascar, men's extramarital affairs are hardly seen as a major issue, while if women are unfaithful, they may face severe criticism and even social ostracism. The difference in perceptions of infidelity between the genders has existed for generations here, and although modern society has made significant strides in advocating for gender equality, this mentality still profoundly affects the mindset of many islanders. The roots of gender inequality in romantic relationships in Madagascar can be traced back to traditional social structures. Madagascar is a country with various indigenous communities, and in some of these, men are always viewed as the ultimate authority in both family and possibly They are not only the primary breadwinners, but also the decision makers in most important matters, including romantic relationships. Men in Madagascar are often encouraged to demonstrate strength and masculinity by having multiple relationships. For some, being a womanizer is seen as a sign of success and social status. In certain rural areas, it is considered a custom for men to have multiple wives or extramarital affairs, and they are seldom criticized for it. Meanwhile, women in Madagascar bear the burden of caring for the family and maintaining stability in marital relationships. They are expected to be loyal to their husbands and families, take responsibility for raising children, and uphold purity while respecting traditions. Women's infidelity is regarded as a moral transgression that can lead to dire consequences such as divorce, loss of custody of children, and stigma from both family and community. While women are constrained by moral standards and closely monitored, men enjoy more privileges in extramarital relationships. Men in Madagascar, especially in rural or traditional communities, are often socially accepted for having multiple concurrent relationships. This can take many forms, from having multiple wives and extramarital lovers to engaging in casual relationships with local women or even tourists. For some men, infidelity is not merely a personal act but a symbol of power and masculinity. Social norms are not only tolerant but sometimes even encourage this behavior, viewing it as a part of asserting one's status in society. This is further reinforced by the fact that most men do not face the severe social consequences that women do if caught cheating. While men are loosened regarding infidelity, women are subjected to strict oversight from both family and society. In many parts of Madagascar, women are required to adhere strictly to moral standards. If discovered engaging in infidelity, they can face harsh repercussions that severely affect their social standing and personal lives. Moreover, women who engage in infidelity in Madagascar often face greater economic and psychological consequences. When divorced or abandoned by their husbands, they lose financial support and must fend for their children on their own. Women in these situations find it very difficult to regain their position in the community, and many are forced to live a hard life, with little chance of remarrying or starting anew. Although traditional beliefs persist in many communities in Madagascar, it cannot be denied that modern society is gradually changing. In urban areas, where globalization and gender equality ideals are more influential, women are beginning to have more freedoms in their romantic and marital relationships. Non-governmental organizations and women's rights movements in Madagascar are also working to raise awareness of this issue, aiming to promote fairness in romantic relationships. However, despite these positive signs, change is not simple. Women in rural areas still face significant prejudice and social pressure. Traditional beliefs are deeply rooted in the social and cultural fabric of Madagascar, making change very challenging. Gender inequality regarding infidelity remains a complex problem that requires changes in both awareness and social policies. The sexual and marital customs in Madagascar reveal a shocking truth about women's freedom and empowerment, from the liberty to choose a husband through sexual relations to the isolated life in a hut to prepare for marriage. Each custom reflects the complex nuances of this island society. However, while some women view relationships with tourists as a manifestation of power, they still face pressure from a harsh patriarchal system where men can easily cheat without punishment. Questions about gender equality and the future of women in Madagascar persist, painting a picture that is both captivating and challenging for this society.